For our citizenship is in heaven, from where we look for the Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. That in times past you were without Christ, being aliens from the citizenship of Israel. You were strangers from the covenants of promise, having no hope, without God in the world. But now in Christ Jesus, you who were sometimes afar off are made nigh by the blood of Christ. For through him we have access by one Spirit unto the Father. Now therefore, you are no longer strangers, foreigners, but fellow citizens with the saints of the household of God. Now let your citizenship be worthy of the gospel of Christ, that you stand fast in one spirit, in one mind, striving together for the faith of the gospel, in nothing terrified by your adversaries, which unto them is evident token of perdition and destruction, but you of salvation, that are of God. For unto you it is given on behalf of Christ, not only to believe in him, but also to suffer for his name's sake. If you be risen in Christ, seek those things which are above, where Christ sitteth at the right hand of God. Set your affection on the things above, not on the things of the earth. For you are dead, and your life is hid in Christ in God. When Christ, who is our life, shall appear, then shall you also appear with him in glory. The great assemblies. Citizens of heaven, we must know when is the time to meet in the great assemblies. Guys, we're leading to a message, a really, really amazing thing I'm so excited to share. But I've had to go through this series, I think this is part 6, on the citizens of heaven, to show you all these details, because the things I'm going to say are going to be so mind-boggling, so over your head, that I know for a lot of you, even if you follow this channel for many years, it's very difficult you to understand all these spiritual concepts, okay? I realize that. That's why I say over and over, watch the videos, watch the playlist, watch them over and over, read the notes, study. It just takes work, all right? I wish it would be so easy you could sit here, watch half-hour video and know this. It's not that way. We have been so desensitized to things in our mind and medication, so many things were so dumbed down that we can't even learn. I mean, it's astonishing to me in the time I've been doing this. I mean, just how dumbed down the people are. It just isn't even possible to understand these things for most people, which is very sad, because I believe these are amazing things of the prophecy and return of Jesus Christ being fulfilled, but that people can't understand it, especially when it relates to time and these feasts, because we've been raised in Christian paganism, worshiping, different gods, and now you come across the actual biblical time periods and feasts by, the Most High instructing mankind how to worship, when to worship, how it relates to Jesus Christ and the testimony of him. And it's just, once you're old, you can't actually learn anymore, so you say, I don't understand. Well, that's fine. Fortunately for me, when I'm doing this playlist, the views are way down, so I have less people to deal with. I have less trolls, I have less problems. So in a way, it's good, because I know the ones watching most likely are very serious about the message, serious about what we're leading to, and serious about the times. Okay, guys, let's talk a little bit about the time that we're in. All right, today is is the second day of the week. It's a Tuesday. Tomorrow is the third day of the week and is the 31st day of the 6th month. The day after that is the Feast of Trumpets, the memorial of blowing the trumpet. Okay, now this is the Enoch calendar, so don't talk to me about the moon. Because it's the Enoch calendar that's in the book of Daniel and book of Revelation tells us when the feasts are. So the Feast of Trumpets is always on a Wednesday. Now, what we're entering is the 7th trumpet. Okay, we're going to get into the verses later. Okay, and when we enter, we're actually entering the book of Revelation. Okay, we're actually entering the time that the book talked about. Okay, so we want to take a vantage point of the book, not on what you see on the news or on YouTube or whatever, because there's absolutely mass confusion. But we're going through all this so that you will learn the feasts. Now the feasts, usually if you learn a feast or you learn a different culture, you're like, okay, what do I do? The feasts are not really about what you do. The purpose of the feast is to present yourself before the throne of God. That's what the feasts are. That's what it literally means in Hebrew when you read about the feast. It means that you present yourself before the face of Yahweh 3 times a year. That's what it says. That's what these are. Now, the symbolism around what happens with each feast and what happened historically, all that must be attained to understand the prophecy in the book of Revelation, because the whole book of Revelation is feasts and offerings. Okay, so you have trumpets. You blow the trumpets over your offering. You blow the trumpets on the first day of every month. There are bowls. The bowls are filled with offerings, and those offerings are dumped on the earth. It's filled with seals, okay? The 7 seals. There's books that are open, okay? All of that symbolism, okay? Now I'll even ask you. Okay, so you see here we have a scroll. We have a white stone on it. We're using that as an example of a seal. Let me ask you, what feast is that? I can hear you typing in the comments. Well, the feast that is Yom Kippur. Okay? The Day of Atonement. Because the idea is that you present 2 goats. One of them is sacrificed. Okay, one of them is sacrificed. The other one has a seal or a lot on his head, and he goes into the wilderness. He's called Azazel. Okay, so that's the mark of the beast. So you are the goat that offers yourself, okay, as a living sacrifice, as it says. Okay, but then those are animals, all right? So the animals represent the people. And you would seal the names in a book spiritually. This is the idea. You would seal the names in the book into the next year. So it repeats every year. Now, we don't necessarily have that taking place anymore because Christ fulfilled the Day of Atonement. Okay, he fulfilled that feast already. So we don't keep the Day of Atonement the way the Jews do, certainly sacrificing animals and stuff. But we look at all the symbolism, and once you know what that is, okay, all right, when are the people written in a book? Okay, well, for many Christians, they don't know. But you would have to study these feasts to know what that is. Once you know what that is, you'll see it in the Bible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the book of Revelation, and we're going to show you all the feasts. And we're going to show you how there's a precise order of time. Precise order, absolutely perfect. Okay, everything agrees one with another. And we find this information from the lunar and solar eclipses. We find this information from the book of Revelation, the book of Daniel, the book of Esther. Okay, those books give us the elements of time. Okay, how do we know when one thing begins, when one thing ends? Okay, so we're in an amazing time where we've had, don't let the four winds blow, the first four trumpets blow until something happens. So there's a holding back effect, all right? But then what it says is that the seventh trumpet, everything is complete. Okay, so what that would mean, what we're saying, guys, what that would mean is that the first four trumpets were to be blown in their appointed time. Okay, but there was a holding back of those. All right, so those were held back. They didn't happen in their time. They're being held back. But they're held back, okay, but they must happen, if we understand the prophecy correctly, they must happen before the completion of the seventh trumpet. Because trumpet 5, trumpet 6, and trumpet 7 have woes. Trumpet 5 is the first woe. Trumpet 6 is the second woe. Trumpet 7 is the third woe. So those first four trumpets are held back. Okay? But then the woes commence. Woe 1, woe 2, woe 3, which is trumpet 5, trumpet 6, trumpet 7. Okay? So we have seen those trumpets. We have seen the fifth trumpet blow. All right? Now it's spiritual language that we wouldn't know what it actually looked like until it happened. Now you can see it's happened. All right? So let's look at the importance of the assemblies. Now, as we go, I just want to tell you my personal testimony in this. I avoid this. I don't talk about me. I talk about the Bible. All right? But I know a lot of times, you guys just don't understand any of this, and you just say anything I say about time. No, it's not. But you're blind and ignorant of these facts, and you're not doing it. Okay? Now, I was instructed to do the feast back in 2012. Okay? And I didn't know anything. So I was like, what do I do? How does this work? I mean, we have Passover. Okay? I understand principally the spiritual nature of it. So I struggled. And I don't do it the same time every year. But I did it, and amazing things happened every time. Let me say that again. Amazing things happen every time. The majority of revelation and things I'm sharing on this channel, okay, all come from me keeping the feast. Not like, okay, I'm going to make this or I'm going to do it that. It's not what I do. It's, well, I don't know about all this, God. I just present myself before your throne. Okay, I present myself to God. And he has granted me the authorization to understand certain things. Let me explain a few examples. So I started that in 2012. By, what year was it? It was right here. This one. Yeah. The year was the next year in 2013. Okay. In 2013, I kept the Feast of Tabernacles. And on the 8th day of Tabernacles, okay, in a vision, one of the 24 elders gave me a scroll. He gave me a scroll, and it was the House of David. Okay? So I was given this scroll. It was the House of David. I received it like this, and I was like, I don't even know what the House of David is. I said, well, I better study. I better research. I better, this was given to me. I'm going to take it serious. I'm going to study, and I'm going to read this scroll on the House of David. Okay? And then other scrolls were granted to me. In February 2016, it was the Feast of Purim. And I kept the Feast of Purim, and I was given the scroll of Esther. I was like, this is unbelievable. The book of Esther explains the whole book of Revelation. It all matches perfectly. Okay? There's no way I can explain that to you in like 2 minutes. So you have to watch Esther's preparation. You have to watch all these videos. Okay? Now we're going to explain some of those details in this video. But that was amazing to me. All right, so even when I'm traveling, I still keep the feasts. All right, I rest. I do all these things. I keep the Jubilee. The Jubilee was from the fall of 2015 to the fall of 2016. All right, and that's when I was living in an RV. Okay, that's what began the now 5 years of full-time travel. So when it comes to these feasts, I'm always granted something. I'll give you an example. This year, okay, I was given the knowledge of Revelation 12, okay? So what will happen is this, is once I'm given the scroll and I go through, trying to understand it, hash it all out, study it out, get the information. To me, it's just heavenly downloads, however you want to say it, okay? Explain it all through the Bible and then do a series of videos. All right, so you'll see this year I did a series of videos on the Revelation 12 sign. Okay, and what I was doing is I was beginning to understand how Revelation chapter 12 is fulfilled, how it happens. Okay, now you got to watch those videos to see. We're going to talk about it a little bit later. Then we started to come to the Feast of the Fall. And that's where I told you guys, I'm fasting. These are crazy times, all right? I'm just fasting. I'm calling a solemn assembly. And I was telling you about Joel chapter 2, because it says, blow the trumpet in Zion. Okay, call a fast. Assemble the people. Now, when it's talking about calling a solemn assembly, it's a specific Hebrew word. And that Hebrew word is Atztara or something like that. And basically, it's instituted in the feasts. Okay? So it says, okay, keep the feast, do this on this day, da-da-da. And he said, okay, this particular day during that week is a solemn assembly. And it's a specific word, it's a specific day. Okay? It's a solemn assembly. So what I began to realize is that is Mount Zion. I began to realize Hebrews 12 is talking about the heavenly assembly in Mount Zion. Okay, that's what happened this year, and I knew what happened back in Revelation 4 and 5 is what I'm getting to. That's why this is part 6, just to explain what is going on, because it's very difficult for me to even communicate. It's so deep. But when we get to Hebrews chapter 12, we see some of the feast and the language in the feast in the words here. So we got Hebrews 12, and you see verse 18. It's talking about when the Most High came on Mount Sinai. When was that? It was a feast, right? Which one? Oh, we call it Pentecost, okay? Or it's the Feast of Weeks. All right, so that happened in the 3rd month. Okay? And what it says is, and the sound of the trumpet and the voice of the words. So it's an assembly. The children of Israel came out of the Exodus, and the Most High came down on the mountain of Mount Sinai, and his voice was a sound of a trumpet. We're entering the 7th trumpet. Okay, now the trumpet, it talks about the days of the 7th trumpet. So it's not a single day. It's not a single day on the Feast of Trumpets. That's not what Revelation is talking about. It's talking about the days of the 7th trumpet. All right? Now, every seal, trumpet, okay, so every seal, every trumpet, and every bowl, okay, is 6 months. All right? Now, it's not that they all happen just in 6 months, but it talks about 1,260 days, a time times and a half a time, okay? All those things are indicators of time, okay? And we can understand that some of these things take place in a specific time, which we'll get into, okay? So we have to have markers and indicators when they are, all right? And so we are in the time of the trumpets. And you say, well, Leland, where's Wormwood? Where's, Where's this one? Well, the fires. Look at California. That's the fires. Okay, that's the first trumpet. You know, it's talking about fire coming from heaven. Well, it's directed energy weapons, all right? Now, that's happening now, but it's been happening specifically since, it's gotten real bad since 2017, the Revelation 12 sign, okay? But let's get back to Hebrews 12. Okay, so this is the voice of the trumpet, which he came down in the mountain. It was so terrible the sight that Moses did exceedingly fear and quake. Okay, verse 22, but you are come to Mount Zion. Okay, so we have the whole story of Mount Sinai, which is a type and shadow. When the Lord Jesus Christ, the Son of Man, comes in the clouds with the voice of a trumpet, okay, and his mighty angels, in power and glory, that's Pentecost. All right? But you are come to Mount Zion. Okay? Where's that? Well, I have some videos. I'll show you where it is in Jerusalem. And you can go there, but it's not the Mount Zion this is talking about. But you are come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem. Okay, so this is New Jerusalem this is talking about. So what this means is that certain feasts, Mount Sinai, is an assembly. Okay? So we are not assembled at Mount Sinai, we're assembled in Mount Zion. We're assembled at Mount Zion, and Mount Zion is not on the earth. All right? But you keep the feast happens at a specific time of the year. Okay? It's Passover. Okay? It's the Feast of Trumpets. It's Tabernacles. Okay? It's the Feast of Weeks. The Feast of Weeks, it is Pentecost. That's when you go to Mount Zion, to the heavenly Jerusalem, to the innumerable company of angels. Now, the Greek word here is myrias, which is myriad. Okay, so this is an assembly of myriads and myriads, a great multitude. Okay, and then we'll see that language in Revelation, where it's people. Okay, to the General Assembly. To the General Assembly. Now this word, when I saw this word in the Greek and I saw its connection to the Moedim, I was like, this was it. Okay, the word is panagrias. Okay, it means a festal assembly, a festival. All right, in a public square or public meeting, an assembly place where people meet for a common purpose, especially to celebrate or commemorate, be festive. Now, when we look at this definition of this gathering, of this word in Greek, what it does is it tells us that the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament, so it's like the Hebrew translated into Greek, which is very old. It's going back several centuries before Christ. Okay, the Septuagint said that whenever the word Moedim, okay, which is the Hebrew word for the feasts, they used this word in the Septuagint. So what that means is that this word, great assembly, we read in English, this panagrias, okay, this is talking about the feasts. This is talking about the Moedim. This is talking about the three feasts that the men must appear in Jerusalem. Passover, Feast of Weeks, and Tabernacles. That's what this is talking about by a single word. I was like, that's it. To the General Assembly, the panagrias, the Moedim in Hebrew, okay? And the ecclesia of the firstborn, okay? The ecclesia, the assembly of the prototokos, the firstborn, which are written in heaven, all right? So remember what we told you. When is it the names are written in heaven? Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement, right? So we have the language of Pentecost, Mount Sinai, and the Day of Atonement, the names written in heaven, okay, and to the God, judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, and to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaks better things than Abel. So also, when we have Passover taking place, and the blood was placed on the doorposts in that season of time when the children of Israel came out of Egypt, they pass over the Red Sea. They're there at Mount Sinai. Moses was instructed to take the blood and sprinkle the people. Okay, he took the blood, he sprinkled the people, and that's what this is talking about. But Jesus, our mediator of the new covenant, to the blood of sprinkling. Okay, so it's Christ's blood of sprinkling. So Christ is fulfilling that. All right, his blood has fulfilled what Moses did as a type and shadow. All right, so this is this assembly of those whose names are written in heaven. Okay, and now let's go to Revelation and begin to see the feasts in Revelation. Guys, I have another video on this. We're going to move through quickly, and I'm going to have notes for you. This is amazing, all right? But I've already covered this before. I'm just going to say some other things that I haven't covered. But basically, the revelation of Jesus Christ, the book of Revelation, begins with a trumpet. That trumpet is in Revelation chapter 1 and verse 10. I, John, was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, and I heard a great voice of a trumpet. The voice of the trumpet there is the Feast of Trumpets, beginning the fall feast. So that's a particular time in the year. Now, that particular year was 2010. Okay, we're going to get into this in another video, but we can prove to you that this trumpet right here in Revelation chapter 1, all right, that blows a trumpet at a specific time. Then we get to Revelation 4. I beheld, and a door was open in heaven. And the first voice I heard were as a trumpet. All right, we're going to prove to you that that happens 3 years later. All right, so you have to remember all these feasts happen at a particular time of the year. Spring, fall, opposite. Okay, the first month, the seventh month. All right, so this is the Feast of Trumpets 3 years later. Then in Revelation chapter 5, we see a book open. Behold, in the midst of the throne of the four living creatures stood a lamb, as it had been slain. Okay, so after that Feast of Trumpets, all right, then you come to 6 months later, you have the lamb slain. When is that? That's Passover. That's the springtime. Okay, and we continually see the lamb, the song of the lamb. Okay, and this continues in Revelation chapter 5. All right, now other proof that this is Passover is in Revelation chapter 15. Because in Revelation chapter 15, they sang the song of Moses, the servant of God, and the song of the Lamb. So you see the song of the Lamb right here at Passover. Well, when did they sing the song of Moses? In Passover, right? Because they had to take the blood, they had to put it on the doorpost. They were in Egypt. The destroyer passed over the blood, okay? They crossed the Red Sea, and what did? They sang the song of Moses. When was that? It was Passover. Okay, so this is where you see, when you keep the feast and you study all these things. Now, I study this all day, every day, and I have for 8 years. And I know you're not going to do that. But I'm just saying, I'm taking all that information and I'm sharing it to you in a half hour. So please respect the work we're doing here, man. That's what I'm trying to say. So anyway, back to Revelation 5, we have Passover. Okay, we have Passover. The lamb, the lamb, the lamb. They sing the song of the lamb. Then I saw the lamb open one of the seals. Okay, so then he opens one of the seals. When is this? Well, this first seal, okay, opens the seals, and these are what? The horse riders. Well, when did they start? Passover. Okay, so that starts in the Passover season. And so what happens is each seal, okay, so that ushers in that seal. So what happened was we had 3.5 years. So we had 3.5 years from the first trumpet in Revelation 1. We have 3.5 years later to Revelation 6. Okay? Each one of the horse riders is 6 months. So you have the white horse, it goes from Passover to trumpets. You get the second horse, it goes from trumpets to Passover. You get the third horse, it goes from Passover to trumpets. You get the fourth, it goes from trumpets to Passover. You see that? So all that happens in a precise order, in sequence. Okay, so that's Revelation chapter 6. Then once we get to the sixth seal, okay, then we, in the sixth seal, we get the Lamb again, okay, and he's on a throne. So the Lamb is on a throne, and you see his chariot throne in Revelation chapter 7, verse 1. Now, what has happened at the same time is in the story of the book of Esther, is Esther has prepared herself during that sixth seal. Now, the sixth seal is different than the other ones. It's not 6 months, it's a year. Why? Esther was prepared 1 year. 6 months of sweet odors, okay, alternating back and forth between the feasts, and 6 months of myrrh. 6 months of myrrh, 6 months of sweet odors. Okay, that's a year. So she's prepared 1 year. That's the sixth seal. Okay? So at the conclusion of that, Esther's brought before the king. All right, who's Esther? Esther's the 144,000, because what? You see the Lamb, you see his throne. You see the number of them which are sealed. Okay, but there's a holding back. Don't let the winds blow until we have sealed the servants of God on their forehead. There's a holding back taking place, all right? But that is Esther. Okay, so Esther is also the type of the woman clothed with the sun, who has a crown of what? 12 stars. Well, Esther is given a crown. Okay, so that happens when Esther is crowned precisely in the 7th year. So now what's happened is we completed 3.5 years from the first trumpet, and then 3.5 years later to Passover. Then we went to Passover. We come 3.5 years later, we come to trumpets. Okay? Now we get to the Feast of Trumpets. In the fall feast, we can see the Day of Atonement in Revelation 8, because he has a golden censer. Okay? The angel has a golden censer, and it was given him much incense, that he should offer it before God. What is that? What is he doing, guys? He's doing the Day of Atonement. In the Day of Atonement, he would take the incense, he would offer it in the Holy of Holies, and before God. Okay? So that is precisely the Day of Atonement that's talking about, Revelation chapter 8. It's also Revelation 12. And actually the last verse of Revelation 11:19, the temple of God was opened in heaven, and it was seen in the temple the Ark of the Testimony, or the Ark of the Covenant. So he would take the incense, he would go into the Holy of Holies in the Ark of the Covenant. So that's what it's talking about. Then there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun. Okay? And the moon under her feet, and her head a crown of 12 stars. Okay, so that is the Day of Atonement. We knew that sign happened in Revelation 12 happened September 22nd, 2017, precisely on the Day of Atonement, on the Enoch calendar. You can't follow the Jewish calendar. It's none of these things will make sense. So here you can see. Now, let's look at what happens here in Revelation 12 and break down how it then ushers in the next 7 years. So when that sign happens, that's ushering in the 7 years, okay? The tribulation period. So that happened, and then what it says, and she brought forth a man-child who was to rule the nation with the rod of iron, and the child was caught up to God and his throne. When is that? Okay, that was the Yom Kippur. That happened. Okay, these people were caught up to the throne. The 144,000, the elect. It happened.
All right, they're serving the Lamb now. It says they follow the Lamb wheresoever he goes. That assembly took place. Okay? Then what it says is the woman fled into the wilderness where she had a place prepared of God that they should feed her 1,260 days. Okay, so what does this mean? This means if we go to the Feast of Trumpets in 2017, the Feast of Trumpets, okay, that's the first day of the 7th month. Yom Kippur is the 10th day of the 7th month. Okay, so the Feast of Trumpets is first. All right, and you can see the symbolism of the trumpets in Revelation 11, which we'll look at in a minute. So it's the Feast of Trumpets. You count from the Feast of Trumpets. You count 1,260 days. Now the way you do that is there's obviously 360 days in each year. So you need the Enoch counter. It's only Enoch counter you can do this because it will account for the solar days. You have 364 days, all right? And then sometimes you have a leap week. But you count from the Feast of Trumpets, you count 1,260 days, okay? And notice what it says. She had a place prepared of God, okay? So if you go from trumpets and you go 3 years, all right? 2018, 2019, 2020, that's 3 years, right? But that's talking about 3.5. So then you go from the Feast of Trumpets, you go 6 months, you come to what? Passover. Okay? So now you come to Passover, and when you get to the Passover, the first day of the first month is when Moses set up the tabernacle. Okay? So what this is saying, the symbolism of what this is saying here, is that she had a place prepared of God. That's the tabernacle being set up on the first day of the first month, precisely 1,260 days after the Feast of Trumpets 2017. Then we keep going because it talks about they overcame him, the adversary. Okay, this is the man-child. All right, the man-child has overcome the dragon by the blood of the Lamb. When is that? Okay, so we saw on the first day of the first month you set up the tabernacle, right? Then 14 days later is what? Passover. Okay, you see? So when it's talking about the blood of the Lamb, this is talking about Passover. All right? Now, then it continues on and it says, they love not their lives unto death. Okay? So this is where the testimony, it says the testimony of Christ. So the testimony of Christ was what? He died for us. His blood was shed on what? Passover. Then he rose from the dead after 3 days and 3 nights. He rose from the dead. Okay? He loved not his life unto death. Okay, these people followed that example. All right? Now, when did that happen? He rose on what? First fruits. Okay, so this is talking about first fruits. So, they love not their lives unto death. That's first fruits. That's the day, the resurrection. All right? So what's happening? So let's take a moment and remember where we are. Okay? So now we're going in the future. We're going into the Passover season in 2021. And the Passover season 2021 is exactly what this is talking about. Okay? Because you have the sign of the woman clothed with the sun. It happened. We got the 4 blood moons. That was the seals. Precisely. 3.5 years of the seals leading to the woman clothed with the sun. The woman clothed with the sun. 3.5 years. Okay? Leading to this Passover season. Okay, the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony. And they love not their lives of death. The resurrection. That's what this is talking about. Then it continues. It says, okay, after you what's the next feast after first fruits or resurrection? It's Pentecost, right? Then from that precise date you count 50 days. You count 50 days, it's Pentecost, 50 days later. And in Pentecost, the Feast of Weeks, you're commanded to rejoice. You're commanded to rejoice because God knows you won't do it. So he commands you to do it. Rejoice. Therefore rejoice, you heavens, and you that dwell in them. That's Pentecost. Glory to his name. So, after that, the woman was given 2 wings of an eagle that she'd fly into the wilderness to her place where she is nourished for what? A time. Times and a half a time. Another 3.5 years. Okay? Now, within that time, Okay? Then the serpent cast out of its mouth water in the flood, and the woman that caused it to be carried away with the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth opened its mouth, and it swallowed up the flood, and the dragon was cast out of his mouth, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and what? Went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and the testimony of Jesus Christ. He went to make war. This is Armageddon. Perfectly. Okay? Why? When is that? That's exactly 3.5 years after. So at the end of the 7 years, you can clearly see the 7 years in Revelation chapter 12, and marks it out perfectly. All right? At the end of the 7 years, it is Armageddon. And the Armageddon is the dragon making war with the saints. Okay? And it's specifically the ones that keep the commandments of God. Because the other ones, many will take the mark of the beast. All right, so there you can see the perfect time period, okay, of the feasts. All right, and as we mentioned, we could see that Revelation chapter 16, okay, then there was a great voice from the temple and the 7 angels to pour out their bowls. So the 7 angels have the bowls, and they pour out the bowls in Revelation 16. That time period is also 3.5 years. Okay, so we have 3.5 years of seals, 3.5 years of trumpets, 3.5 years of bowls. Okay, all understood perfectly by the feasts. Okay, the feasts determine all these things, and as we said, the Passover season is also being described in Revelation 15 when they sing the Song of the Lamb during what? Passover, and the Song of Moses, which is what time? Passover. Okay? So you see Passover, Revelation 15, Revelation 16, you see the bowls poured out. Okay? And Revelation 16 also tells us when exactly Armageddon is. Okay? The angel poured his 6th bowl out, and then verse 16, and they gathered together in the place in the Hebrew tongue called Armageddon. We'll do more on Armageddon later. Now, that's a lot, so let's look at this in another format. All right, the prophecy begins with the first 7 years with the book of Esther and Revelation 1 describing the Lamb sits on the throne, or the king sits on the throne. And then we have the Feast of Trumpets in Revelation 1:10. John hears a voice of a trumpet. Okay? Then we have 3 years, year 1, year 2, year 3. And then in the 3rd year, we have Revelation 4:1. John had a door opened in heaven, and he heard a voice of a trumpet. Okay, so that's the Feast of Trumpets 3 years later. Now, we know that this was the Lamb sitting on the throne. This began in 2010. Okay, so then 3.5 years later, this is the trumpet, okay, blown in Revelation 4:1. Okay, so this was an assembly that we could see, all right, and we saw innumerable angels. Okay, so the king holds a feast of 180 days, and he invites Vashti. She refuses. Okay, so she's divorced. So that completes 3.5 years from the time the king sits upon the throne. All right. Then what happens in 2014 is we get 4 blood moons. Okay, so you get this season here in yellow is spring, summer. So the beginning of it is Passover. So it was a blood moon in Passover 2014, a blood moon in Tabernacles. Okay, and then they continue. There's 4 blood moons. Well, each one of those is 6 months. Okay, a blood moon happens in 6 months. Blood moon happens in 6 months. Blood moon happens in 6 months, and blood moon happens in 6 months. Those are the horse riders. The seals, okay, are the horse riders. So that begins the horse riders, and that takes place over 1-2 years. All right. Then the virgins are gathered in Shushan, okay, and Esther's gathered with them. All right. And then we have the 6th seal. The 6th seal takes place over a year. That's Esther's preparation. And we can see that's the 144,000. All right. Now we know all this because the Star of Bethlehem marks the Esther's preparation time period, okay? And we also have other solar eclipses transpiring as well. But all of this concludes with the Revelation 12 sign after 7 years. So Esther is crowned in the 7th year. Esther is crowned, and that marks perfectly where the woman clothed with the sun is. Okay, so once that happens, that time period then brings us into the next 7 years. Okay, in the next 7 years, we begin with the Revelation 12 sign, 2017. Okay, and then we have all these judgments. Now these, remember it said, don't let the winds blow. All right, so there was a holding back. We can actually show you some of these are happening now. We can prove to you the third sun, moon, stars are darkened, but there's things the governments are doing to hide this information from us. So it's very difficult. But those 4 are held back. So we expect those 4 to happen before the 7th trumpet is completed in 2021. So then what happens is the 5th trumpet, 6th trumpet, and 7th trumpet, there are woes. You can see, I don't know if you can see that here, but it says woe 1, woe 2, woe 3. Okay, so those woes begin to happen. So what's taking place is the army, is the Lord of Hosts army of the 6th trumpet. Okay, that's the assembly that's taking place right now in this feast time. Okay, the trumpet is blowing in Joel. It was the trumpet, blow the trumpet in Zion, call a solemn assembly. Well, that solemn assembly happens during tabernacles. Okay, so that's what's going on, guys. And other proof of this, I have other videos on this. I'm just going to mention it quickly. Where we are in the eclipses. So where we are in the eclipses, we're here at 2020. Okay, we had solar eclipses, lunar eclipse, solar eclipse, lunar eclipse taking place June 5th, June 21st, okay, and July 4th. Now, these, there was also a solar eclipse on December 26th, okay, in 2019, and then it's 5 months until this one. So that's why we believe that is the locust army. So it was the locust army and coronavirus that began those 5 months. So that brings us to here, okay, in the 6th trumpet army. Then we come to the 7th trumpet army. So the 7th trumpet army, its marker is a full solar eclipse on December 14th. Okay, that's our marker. Now that is during Hanukkah. The Feast of Hanukkah is in the 9th month. And prior to that, another marker is November 29th. Okay, November 29th and then December 14th are our eclipse markers during this 7th and last trumpet. Okay, then what it says is the sun will be turned to sackcloth and the moon shall be turned to blood. So you have December 14th, and then that's a full solar eclipse, sun sackcloth. Then the next eclipse is a full blood moon, and that is May 26th. This is giving us our time period of 1,335 days. Okay? Now, let's also look again at these time periods here with this graphic. And again, we can see in the first 7 years, okay, we had a beginning in Revelation 1:10 with a trumpet. Then 3 years later, we have Revelation 4:1 with the trumpet. Okay, Feast of Trumpets. 3.5 years later, the Feast of Trumpets. Then we have Passover, 2014, beginning another 3.5 years till the sign of the woman clothed with the sun. So those were solar eclipses that happened during the feast. Passover 2014, Tabernacles 2014, Passover 2015, Tabernacles 2015. 3.5 years to the woman clothed with the sun. Okay? And these are the seals, the beginning of sorrows. So Matthew 24:8 says, the beginning of the birth pains, the beginning of sorrows in the Greek is Odin. Okay? And it means a woman travailing in birth. Okay? So she was travailing during that whole time. Then she gave birth. Revelation 12:2. She travailed in birth and pain to be delivered. And travailed in birth in Greek, Odino. Okay, so the birth pains were leading up to Revelation 12 when that happened, okay? Then we have the Passover lamb, which opens the seals of Revelation 6, okay? And the king is angry because Vashti refused to come at the king's command. So once that completes, we go into the second 7 years. Revelation 11:19, the temple of God was open in heaven. They were seeing the temple, the Ark of the Covenant, Yom Kippur, Day of Atonement, when the high priest went before the Ark. Okay? She brought forth a man-child and was fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of God 1,260 days. So 1,260 days from the Day of Atonement, September 22nd, 2017. Okay? That brings us to 2021. All right? And they overcame by the blood of the Lamb, and this is Passover. 1,260 days later, it's in the year 2021. And the woman was given 2 wings of an eagle that she might fly into the wilderness in a place prepared to her. She's nourished at times and a half a time. That's 3.5 years later. Okay? But before that, the dragon was wroth with the woman and made war, Armageddon, with the others of her seed. Okay, that you can see right here. The dragon was wroth with the woman and made war with the others of her seed. Okay? So there you can see all the language around the feasts. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, well, what time is it now? Where are we now in the feast? Well, we're right here, and this is the 30th day of the 6th month, and that is September 14th. Okay, the 15th is tomorrow, and that's the 31st day of the 6th month. Then what we do is we go into the feast of the 7th month. Okay? So then you have the feast of the 7th month, you have the 8th month and 9th month, and then you have Hanukkah. Okay, so Hanukkah is here, and this is that solar eclipse we were telling you about. That's on the 30th day of the 9th month during Hanukkah. But what is going on? You can see it says here, let me try to get you a good view, kind of zoom in. Okay, once we enter the 7th month, you can see for years we've been calling this time period the 7th trumpet. All right? So the Feast of Trumpets is on September 16th. It's always a Wednesday. All right? Then we have the Day of Atonement on September 25th. Then Tabernacles begins from September 30th through to October 7th. Now, you can see I have green here, and I have this. This is the solemn assembly of the 7th month. That is October 7th. Now, what's happened is that the Israeli government has placed a shutdown in Israel, and it's shutting down all activity in Jerusalem so they can't do the feast. All right? Now, what we believe is that this is fulfilling the daily sacrifice being taken away, because they have not been able to sacrifice for a couple years now. So that's the significance of what we're watching for. We'll have another video. We'll get into more details later. But I just wanted to show you where we're at, the things that we're looking at in the time coming ahead. Because this 7th trumpet is the reason why the Sanhedrin wanted to blow a trumpet and a shofar on the Temple Mount. Because it's the 7th trumpet. All right? So guys, this video is going long, but I'm trying to combine all this work and research into one video. All right? To show you the importance of the feast in the book of Revelation. All right? So we'll make links for you for all these charts and graphs in the description field. And thanks for watching, and God bless you.